Live from New York today, talking Packers. Hello, Nags.
Good afternoon. How you doing there south of the border? Take care of yourself. They're not kind to strangers around them parts.
Yes,
Just be careful.
we are aware, but I have Dobie, and he's got dual citizenship because KB's not today. Dobie lives in this area, and he's lived in Chicago forever. He's allowed to go back and forth across the DMZ.
I'm the kind of friend that'll wear my Packer jacket down on Rush Street in Chicago and wait for snipes so I can hit him back.
Bold man, bold man. I lived in Lincoln Park, so carrying the G in Chicago is it hardens you. It hardens you, no doubt.
So many of the Cheesehead TV nation, like your fans, are diehard Packers fans who live behind enemy lines. Yeah. I'm sure you hear that a lot.
Oftentimes, yes, no doubt about it. And look, that's kind of the fun when you are behind enemy lines and you find a Will's Northwoods or some kind of Packers bar where you can kind of all congregate and beat back the world together. It breeds lifelong friendship. I'll tell you that.
I will say this real quickly, Nags. I did comedy on cruise ships for a while. I'm thinking, okay, have you ever done that? It's a different world. And I got out with Cozumel, Mexico, and I was walking into this place. And I say, hey, can I get something to eat? And it's like, well, you're from America. You're a football fan? This is a Packer bar. And I said, I'm at home. Yes, I am.
There you go. Look at that.
Cozumel, Mexico. The owner is a Packer bar. Green against a Favre jersey. It's like,
international
senor,
language.
I am here.
Absolutely love it.
Outstanding.
Worldwide, baby.
Carry the G internationally. All right, so Nags, it is 3:31 on January 26th. Do you know where your defensive coordinator is? Have you heard the name yet? We're done. The list is now what? 3 names?
Four names. We got four reported names as far as both people who have already interviewed, who should have wrapped up their interview today, and then 2 other requests. That's what we've got out there so far.
All right, and give us the names. Brandon Staley was one.
Brandon Staley was in the building today, reportedly, talking to LaFleur. And then there is Bill's linebackers coach. I call him Bobby, son of Bob Babich, because I think old heads like myself will remember his dad as the defensive coordinator for the Bears a decade or so ago. He is actually pretty sought after. He's got a couple of teams lined up to try and interview him. Matt has put in an interview request for him. They've also reportedly had an interview already with the Broncos defensive backs coach, Christian Parker. Very young guy. He's only 32 years old. He actually got his start in the NFL under LaFleur in Matt's very first year in Green Bay under Mike Pettin as a defensive quality control coach. He was there for a couple of years before bouncing to Denver. But he is a very well-regarded young coach. And then finally, they've asked permission to speak with the defensive line coach for the Cowboys, Aiden Doherty. So that's somebody that's the one guy I'm not terribly familiar with, but I do know there are like 3 or 4 teams lining up to speak with him as well.
If it was going to be a Cowboys coach, wouldn't you think Al Harris would vault onto the list?
I've seen a lot of Al Harris. I've been wondering I doubt LaFleur goes this way, but Joe Witt Jr., Al Harris's boss, for another former Packer, not player, but former coach. He did, coach the secondary under McCarthy for a long time in Green Bay. I always found him to be quite sharp and a really good coach, and I thought maybe his name might get into the mix. But so far, those are the only 4 that we know of.
All right, when it comes to this hire, everybody can say what they want, but it seems to me that there's a rub. Some people will say, don't hire that guy because he's from that tree and runs that scheme.
Right.
Is that logic flawed, Nags?
Very, very flawed.
You
don't know. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter who Matt LaFleur hires, right? Some Packers fans somewhere will find something to complain about, including myself. Like, I understand it. The Staley thing hit this morning, and literally everybody was already in one of 2 camps. It was either, he had a really good defense the one year he was coordinating with the Rams prior to getting the head gig out there with the Chargers, or it was, is he going to bring Aaron Donald with him? Because that's who he had when he had the really highly rated defense with the Rams. Now, look, I understand that there is something to be said for how a guy goes about coordinating other places. But when you're in the conversation with a head coach in an interview situation like this, you are also asking the coach, what are you looking for? Like, it's not come in, keep doing what you've been doing at all these other stops, run the stuff that the guy ahead of you ran at your last location. It's about, what do you guys plan to do together? What is your vision as a head coach? What do you want him to implement? So that, without knowing that piece of information, what LaFleur is asking of these guys, look, I get how there's so much interest. It's the whole reason something like Cheesehead TV can even exist. But we really don't know what's being asked of these guys in an interview. We don't know what they're going to be tasked with. And so I certainly look at their past. You look at their track record, so to speak. But even like, oh, he's a defensive backs coach. Those defensive backs weren't really good. Well, what system were they running? What were they being asked to do? How much were they being allowed to use the technique that they're being taught day in and day out, as opposed to, okay, this week we're going to run a lot of zone because we think it works better against this offense. Like, there's so many layers that to just kind of blanket, oh, he's with that guy, therefore he's not good, is a bit surface level nonsense.
Don't make it disqualifying. Like, I don't want someone from the Fangio tree. Like, why not? If they're
well, that's the thing. Like, look, but there's the other side of it, right? I mean, the Fangio system has been all the rage in the NFL. However, especially coming off this season, most teams running the Fangio system have been in the lower part of the rankings, of a lot of rankings, especially overall defense, DVOA, what have you. They've been, 20th and lower by and large.
Yeah.
And so I understand the idea that maybe the league is starting to catch up with it a little bit.
But people assume then that those people are so strictly adherent to that system that they can't evolve and make changes and like grow it and evolve it. Like,
what are you going to be doing in service of Matt LaFleur's Green Bay Packers without that question being answered? We don't know.
The personnel isn't going to change radically, and they're not going to go like run a 4-3 or anything like that, right?
Although, how great would that be? I'd love to get back to a 4-3. Let's get Rashawn Gary with his hand in the dirt. Let's do it. I'm all in.
That might not be bad, but it's unlikely. And the thing is, the personnel is not going to change radically, other than the draft and maybe a free agent safety or something.
Yep.
But Nags, when you look at this, the way tell me, all we have to do is look at the Vikings. Like, in the change that they had in that defense from Brian Flores, like, one guy came in, they didn't radically change their personnel. In fact, they lost some veteran guys, right?
They did, and they dealt with injury along the way, and they rocketed up those same rankings I was just talking about. Funnily enough, by going away from an old head like Donatel, who was running, that's right, something from the Fangio system. Now you look at the Vikings in particular, they did a lot to change, right? And they ran a very different style of defense. But as the Packers kind of were evidence of there at the end of the year, a lot of that kind of got found out second half of the season. Injuries caught up with them a little bit. But that's just a point to say, just because you're radically different, okay, you may surprise people early on and you may get the jump, but it is about laying a groundwork for hopefully what will be a long-term success, and not just, oh, this is really different. We need a couple months of tape to figure it out. Oh, now we figured it out. Like, there's no quick fixes if you want something long term. That's for sure.
Not that it matters. Do you think the players have a preference who gets the gig?
For the most part, no. For the most part, they're going to come to work and they're going to do their job. Now, are they going to be happy about it more days than not? Maybe the personality of the coach could feed into that a little bit, but ultimately, they're professionals. They're going to do what's required and they're going to do what's asked. And they would love, I have zero doubt, to be a bit more quote unquote aggressive in certain situations, but I don't think there's anybody they could hire where there'd be like some kind of mutiny on your hands or anything like that.
We are chatting with Aaron Nagler of Cheesehead TV, a Monday and Friday guest on the Drew and KB program. Our conversations with Nags are brought to us by Miller Lite, Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin. There is a difference, and Rogers Behavioral Health. All right, we need to switch gears because there are some football games. Sadly, they won't involve the Packers. We're coming up. Tomorrow's the 1 week anniversary of the game in Santa Clara, and it seems like a year ago already. It's amazing what the offseason does to your internal calendar. But Nags, what are you looking for other than sheer enjoyment of watching this as a semi-interested spectator? What are you looking for this weekend?
I'm fascinated to see what the Lions are able to take from the successful things that the Packers did against the 49ers, because, you guys remember last week when everybody was picking the 49ers to crush the Packers and, they were going to blow them out, etc. I think the Packers showed some things that maybe the 49ers weren't expecting. And yes, they can shore that up, but especially some of the perimeter stuff that LaFleur got cooking in the run game, I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, took some of that and maybe put a few of those looks into the game plan. On the flip side, hey man, Purdy looked human. Now I know it was in the rain and who knows what the forecast is for Sunday, but I think that Lions front, Hutchinson and company, they could make life real miserable for the kid. And the 49ers are number one for a reason. They're number one seed. I ultimate respect, but I think the Lions can go in there and steal one. I really do. I'm rooting for them to do so. I know it's passé. We're not supposed to as Packers fans, but man, Lions fans remind me of me when I was a kid. And I thought, the Packers are going to be terrible for the rest of my life. And now suddenly they've got a shot. So I'm with them.
Campbell turned it around, did whole culture.
Yeah.
Big
GM,
time. I
the
mean, in
whole
3 years, too. I mean, it's an impressive job. No
Very
question.
impressive.
Is it silly to say that the loss of Deebo Samuel or potential loss of Deebo Samuel or absence would affect them more than just about anybody else like there? I mean,
I think
obviously
McCaffrey
Purdy.
would be a bigger loss, but it's major. There's no doubt. I mean, you can only point to the couple plays he was in against Green Bay. I mean, the very effective quick toss to the perimeter where he gets 15 yards. I mean, it's an automatic first down almost every time you get the guy the ball. Take that off the field, especially for a quarterback like Purdy, only in his second year, or third year, sorry. I mean, that's probably a significant loss, no question.
Is it to the 49ers' advantage that they played much of last Saturday without him and have had this week to practice and prepare?
Zero question.
A plan. Like
you got to wonder. You'll always wonder, like, how much of the game plan got torn out of the playbook last Saturday night, right? Because you got to think they probably had a significant number of plays drawn up for him that then they weren't able to utilize. I would think, the game plan this week will be much more coherent because of the fact that they've had a good idea that he probably won't be there.
So more Kittle and more Ayuk in the offing?
No question. And, hey, Jennings, I thought, really stepped up against the Packers. He's somebody who kind of gets lost in the mix there, but whether it was receptions or just some of his blocking in the run game, he really came to play. And, against that Lions defense, he'll have to step up, no doubt.
Now, the Niners defense seemed to me like I know it's hard to say, but because there was some rust there and stuff, but did they underperform your expectations on Saturday, the Niners?
Not really. I think it was more.
I was surprised at how well they were able to run, and they were neutralized Bosa, and everything was going great until Zach Tom went out.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I thought the Packers could still operate. I mean, they still scored when Tom was out, right? I do think Jordan Love kind of started to get the yips a little bit because some of that pressure started arriving a little quicker than earlier in the game. But yeah, no, I think that's kind of who they've been, and they've done a good job of utilizing their offense to get ahead of teams, and that allows them to just pin their ears back. That front four can get pressure by not blitzing. That makes it real hard if you're playing from behind to try and find creases in the zone and try to push the ball downfield. You're trying to play catch up. They make your life miserable if you get in that kind of game. So, yeah, no, I don't think that didn't surprise me, but I do think you saw it come kind of to the fore there at the end, right? When the Packers needed to generate points and they just couldn't because that front four can just get after you so many different ways.
In our final 30 seconds, Nags, can Lamar and the Ravens at home slay the dragon that is Travis and Taylor and Mahomes?
Look,
and if Kansas City wins Sunday, should we just stamp their ticket to every Super Bowl from now until the next 10 years?
I mean, they're certainly the dynasty in that case, right? There's no doubt about it. I'm actually rooting for it because I want my daughters to be interested in the Super Bowl more than just the commercials. So I'm in on a Taylor Swift Super Bowl, but I think the Ravens are going to win. If for no other reason, you remember my good friend Luke Laga. We've had beers together.
Yes.
He works with Kevin Zeitler, the guard, former Wisconsin Badger, guard for the Ravens. So I am totally Team Zeitler, totally Team Ravens. Go Ravens.
All right. And by the way, Kevin Zeitler you talk about people getting snubbed for awards and underappreciated.
One of the
best
most
guards of the generation.
Underrated players in the NFL his entire time in the league. Yep. No doubt.
The dude should be in the Pro Bowl every year.
Every year. Lock him in. Lock him in. No question.
Absurd. Well, he's scrawny,
understated. He doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, he probably cares, but
he goes to work. He wins his games. He goes, has a good offseason, comes back, does it again.
That's a good point.
Salt of the
Nags,
earth.
have a great weekend carrying the G, my brother.
Absolutely.
And
Thanks
we
so
will
much.
Talk to you on Monday.
Talk to you later. Have a good day.
All right. Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV.com.